morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the visual overview track. Before we start with this presentation, you should have brought your computer with you with Microsoft Visio installed 2013 or more recent, preferably. Okay, in case you're not connected to the Wi-Fi or to the DMA, you can find the necessary credentials on this slide. There are also some handouts printed out with all the exercises that we will cover today. My colleagues will hand over them to you. Also, the password is on them. So while my other two colleagues will explain more the integration of Visio within DataMiner, I will focus more on Visio and also on the design of it. With this, as Skyline keeps on growing and DataMiner is already used all over the world, we have introduced a style guide that designers can follow to. It's not required, but we hear that a lot of people are not having that much time and visual experience, so you can have this as a guideline. Also, with regards to the style guide, we have introduced some visual stencils that we will cover within some slides. And also, I will explain some more in detail, some handy visual features that can help fasten the design process. Okay, so the objective of today is making a compelling Visio. It's quite simple, you would think. I started from the drawing, the transition that we made in DRS 2016. So we made a similar presentation on this workshop, and we brought the top left image to the middle. As you can see, designing is iterative. Style is changing over time, and our style guide will probably also change over time according to what the environment is looking for. So this is the drawing that we will try to create. We will do that by means of simple exercises that each will follow up to that eventually this design. Okay, so the most important feature of DataMiner is monitoring. We do that all for over more than 20 years, and the colors were not changed for that time. So we started at the core and we changed the DataMiner colors to the colors that you see on this slide. Also, you can find these colors in your DataMiner under the Skyline DataMiner folder. It's actually in the file DataMiner XML. So in case you want to change that, it's always possible according to your needs. Also, if you're designing something that is not really linked to any alarming or monitoring, we have introduced color palettes that can be used to fasten the design and not trying to search for the right colors. We also have standardized our fonts. Through all of our Visios, we use CLUI, either in the regular type or in the semi-line type. Titles and subtitles are always aligned to the left and in uppercase, preferably. And they use this regular font, CLUI regular. It's not, as I already said, it's not required to follow strictly the guidelines, because if, for example, your title of that Visio is dynamic, for example, the name of your view, then it's not always easy to make that uppercase. Also, parameter descriptions and information labels are in semi-line and in capital case. These are just small things, but can enhance your Visio quite fast. Okay, maybe enough of me talking. Let us start with an introductory exercise. We all have one personalized view, so you can find the seat number on your seat, and you can log in by means of filling in user with capital case O2 for the second user, for example. The password is DataMiner. It's D and M as capital case and an exclamation mark at the end. So if you let me show that to you. So every user should have one view with one element in it. It's a dummy element, so for user 1, you have LEU1. It's a dummy element just for this demo purpose. I will work on the session 2-admin view, and I also created a session 2 participants view that can be used to show what we eventually will make. Okay, so here you can see that view. We have some stencils that I will go over in some of the next slides. You can simply toggle between the states. You cannot do that, it's a permission thing. Also, I have, for the final exercise, filled in here some information that you need to finalize the Visio. It's not really required now, but you can also always fall back to this drawing. Also, in case, I have time restrictions, so in case I'm going too fast for you, you can always download this Visio file by right-clicking, and you can, for example, start from after exercise 5. So here you can see that I adjusted the space. You can just copy-paste this view to your personalized view. Don't assign this Visio file, as this will override my file. Okay? So let's start with the first exercise. As you can find on your handout, we will assign a new blank Robin by just right-clicking on our personalized view and assign new blank. Click yes, and it will automatically assign a drawing to your view and also open Microsoft Visio on your computer, in case you have it installed. The first time it could take a while because it's loading some initial things, just like loading the stencils and other settings. Okay. So if we check the second step of our exercise, we want to make the title like we want in our style guide. So you can see here the advanced editing. It's actually introduced in 969, and we use the feature release 968. So I haven't tested it with advanced editing. So you can go to the view pane, task panes, and click on shape data, because you will work with shape data and not with the advanced editing in this exercise. Okay, so what we want is the title. We want to align it to the left. It's just a simple feature that you can find on the Home tab over here. And you can see that the text is aligned to the left. It's not really aligned with the background layer, and you can adjust this by simple clicking F2 or right-clicking and edit text. So you can edit the text. In the context menu, you can go to paragraph. There's a tab called text block, and in that text block you see that the margins are applied to that text. So if you want to align, it's very smooth. You want to remove those margins. So I can simply fill all zeros to these margins. If you click OK, you can see that the text is perfectly aligned to the left. It's a simple thing, but it can enhance the quality and the professional look of your Visio. Okay? On the third step, we will just assign a specific color to that background color, because we will need it in some subsequent exercises. You can do this in two different ways. You can either go to the Home tab, and here you have some fill icon that you can use. I will show you a second way, because we will also need that in another exercise. You can simply right-click on the shape you want to fill the background color, go to Format Shape, and this will open a pane to fill or line settings. In this case, you want to assign a filling color. It's a solid fill, and if you check on the slide handouts, it's a specific color, and you can fill in that with more colors. Is the text big enough to see, or do I need to zoom in more on that? Is it okay? Okay. So you can click more colors, and here you can fill in the RGB value, which is 119, 170, and 135. Okay? Then we just simply save or drawing, go back to Cube, and as you can see, the changes are applied. Okay. I give you some time to finish that exercise. It's just an introduction, so you can start with the other exercises. Okay, so let us continue with some other theory. Maybe the most important parts of this presentations are the stencils. The stencils are, you can see one stencil as a library of master shapes. These master shapes are just templates that are pre-designed and pre-configured. So what you have seen in the first session is that you need a lot of configurations and adding of shape data to get to a result that you want. So these stencils can help you with this process, and you just need to fill in the necessary data that you need. For example, just the elements and the parameter bits. Okay? So the first stencil is are the icons. We have created a centralized library that will combine all the icons that we have, and we call it Skyline. It's an interactive site that you can search based on tags. I will show you a quick demo on that. So you can simply navigate to skyline.de and go to Skylines. And here you can see all the icons that we have currently, and you can search based on tags. So I will give you an example because we need it in a subsequent exercise. I can search for service, and as you can see, we can give 3 suggested icons for this. They are available in several formats, so you can click on the icon itself, and this will download a PNG, transparent PNG, if you want. You can also have it in XAML formats, and this is used in the context of SRAM to apply icon to a function.
Of course, this is also available in a stencil to be used within Visio. Okay, we will use this icon within Visio. There is also some search functionality, and I will show you that in the exercise. But first, I will show you all the other stencils. So the second stencil is the buttons. They have all the same functionality as we have in Cube. So there are 3 different kinds of buttons. First of all, the simplest one is the toggle button. It just sets a state from one to the other. It aligns either the text always to the left or always to the right, so we can align it perfectly in any situation. You also have action buttons, like you can see on the left side. So these are used for silent automation scripts or direct sets on an element. They don't need any interaction from the user and are shaped like a round rectangle. They have uppercase text within them and have preferably the same width if you use them multiple times. But this is just as in drivers. Okay. The last one, but not the least one, are the link buttons. They are being used when you need actual interaction from the client. So it could be that you click that button to open a pop-up window, or you can initiate interactive automation scripts. This is, for example, used on the SRM booking manager to launch a new booking. They have also uppercase text within them and ends with 3 dots. It's just a convention, but I believe that recognition is better than the recall. So if you recognize that, if you use that every time, a client and operator will find it more useful to see always the same behavior. Okay. The last but not the least are the KPI stencil. This is a stencil to show information. It's the most important part of, and maybe also the oldest part of DataMiner. It's to show information to the user. So you can do that in multiple ways. On the left side, you can find some key performance indicator shapes. So it's just if you want to really stress some parameters, then you can use these shapes. As you can also see, these are being used together with the icon stencil, so they're perfectly compliant with that. Also, if you want to logically group parameters, we can use the second column, for example, in the context of CPE. And if you want to show a lot of information, you can also use the shape on the right side to show in a small space all the necessary information. Okay. So maybe this is a lot of information. It's maybe better to start an exercise with that. In this exercise, we will use the KPI icon to drag and drop that and see that we can easily configure a shape without adding and deleting shape data. Okay, so you can find the exercise. If you want to work on your own, you can just follow the steps, but I will also show that to you. So where can you find the stencils? It's under More Shapes. The Shapes pane can be opened if you go to the View tab, Task panes, and here there is something called Shapes. This is needed to open or close stencils. Okay. If you have that task pane open, you can click on More Shapes, and there is something called DataMiner in that menu. As you can see, there are some stencils included, and this is automatically loaded in whenever you edit a Visio from within Cube. So Edit in Visio will launch the loading of these stencils. I will open the KPI stencil, and as you can see, this is also important for security reasons. It has a macro behind the stencil. It's a simple macro that is only used within Visio, but this handles the filling in of all the parameters at the right places. If you want to specify the parameter 10, for example, that you show the right color on several places. So in my case, I enable the macro, and you can see that there are some shapes in that stencil, as you already saw in the slides. So there are a lot of shapes here. We use the first one just for the introduction. In case they won't, if they are not appearing on your Visio, you can also find in my session 2 participants view some Visio setup of me, what I have in my Visio. So here you can see, if you go navigate to options within Visio, you should have enable automation events checked in. You can also enable run in developer mode if you need that. It's more advanced. Also, you can go to the Trust Center, and you see that there are some settings of me like this. This is only needed whenever you need to change or you don't see the macros appearing. Okay? So let me go back. It's important. So you see some shape data in here. And there are some shape data preceded with an underscore. This is needed for the stencil, because this is the only thing that you need to fill in for that full shape. So you don't need to drill in all the subshapes and search where you need to fill in the correct parameters. You just fill in everything at group level, and then everything's fine. Just be sure to link that to your own elements. So in my case, it's LE. For user 1, it would be LEU1. So just that you know, you can also find, of course, your personalized element in your view. Okay? So let me fill in that information. You can also find it on the handouts. It's parameter 10. Just click enter. You can also change the text to service status if you want. And you see that the text is automatically changed on that shape. Okay? We don't have a write parameter, so we set that to false in our case. And we can just save it to see the results. And as you can see, everything is filled in correctly and quite fast if you compare that to the manual configuration in the first session. Now, I don't really like the icon, so I want to change that. I already showed you how to search for icons in the Skyline's website, but you can also do that in Visio. So for this, let me open the icon stencil. It is in the same way that you did for the KPI stencil. So under DataMiner, we also have something called icons. Just open it. It will load all the icons that you have. And there's, as I already said, some search functionality that you can use to search, for example, for a service. It can take a while, but that's something of Visio. And as you can see, the icon stencil has 3 icons that we can use. I will already delete the old icon that I don't want, and drag and drop just my icon that I want. Also be sure to add it to the group, because if you now, for example, move your KPI stencil, you see that it's not really linked to that shape. So you have to select first the group, the stencil, Control-click on the icon, and you can see there is a multiple selection. Go to the Home tab, and in Home there's a group command, and we should add it to group. Add to group. Okay? So now if you move that shape, it will move together. You can already save that. You can also change the line color of that icon. And that's something which differs from an actual image of the Skyline's website. That's why we included it in Visio. You can change the line color, which is not the case if you use PNG images. So here you can find also a line tool to specify the line color. And as you can see, all the changes are applied. In case you're following me and you hold on to the pace I have, there's a third exercise that we will directly do. after the second exercise. It's just to use the icon stencil, the button stencil. There are a lot of use cases, and I will try to explain some of them. Okay? In this case, we will change the main IRD. So if you go back to my drawing, my final drawing, we will add this toggle button that will change the main status. If you set that to false, to error, if something happens in there, you can see that the service status is also changed. So that's what I'm going to show you. Okay. Let me go to Visio again. Like we did for the icons and the KPIs, there's a third stencil that I've talked about. It's the buttons. The buttons also have some macros behind it, and you just enable it. And as you can see, all the icons that I talked about are being populated in that task pane, the shapes pane. For this exercise, just for the introduction, we will use the most simple toggle button. It's the TB-normal-R, because we want to align it to the right. Okay? I will stress that yet again. You need to link it to your own element to see the changes. Otherwise, you will interference with my element, or if you keep this element, you won't see anything, because we are working on a view Visio. Okay? So in my case, it's LE. For user 1, it's LEU1. The read parameter is 100. You can also find this in the handouts. The write parameter has an offset of 50, so the write parameter is 150. The enabled value is 1, and the disabled value is 0. This is the only thing that we need to do. So it's quite fast to configure some default things. You can save the presentation, the Visio, and then check what will happen in Cube. So it is indirectly linked to the service status, as I already indicated. If you click that toggle button, you will see that the service status is going into error. You can also click again to set it to OK. OK? So now you have some time if you're making the exercises. You have some time to finalize. I will show you some more features of the stencil, but it's not included in the exercise. So we also have a toggle button with custom text in case you don't agree with the suggested parameter value. So we actually fill in all these same things, but we have now two more settings: the text enabled and text disabled, in case you want to specify some custom text. So let me show that to you. As I already told, all this is the same as the first toggle button, and now we can simply type in something that we want. And I will simply say yes, no. And if you then go back to Cube, you see that the yes, no is applied to that toggle button, but it's linked to the same parameter. Also, maybe I will show you some other feature in the KPI stencil. So yeah, of course, we have other buttons like the action buttons that all have the necessary information that you need to fill in, and they have custom hover states, as Ruben already explained in the first session. Also on the KPI stencil, I want to show you some very useful thing in case you want to configure something very fast. So we have a list of parameters in here. In case you want to show more than 3 parameters, there's an option in the shape data to fill in the number of parameters. So if I, for example, say I want to show, or I need 4 parameters to show, you can simply fill that in and it will automatically create that shape. Also, there are more advanced shapes, and everything is perfectly scalable, in case you want that. And here you have then 2 settings, the number of normal parameters and the number of compact parameters. So if I, for example, want 2 normal parameters that are maybe more important than the others, I can just fill number 2 and, for example, number 5 for the compact parameters. So it's quite simple. You just need to fill in all the necessary information. For each parameter, you have 3 different settings. You can have the PID, so the number of the parameter. The text, it's default parameter description, so the text that you see within Cube. And also, we have the functionality to enable a set on that specific parameter. But that's, again, not used in this exercise. So I will delete all of these things. Okay. Let me maybe continue with some basic Visio features. It's very simple, but it can increase the quality of your Visio a lot. So I mean really a lot, because you can directly see if something is not aligned, and it's just, if you want to make something professional and harmonious, you just need the alignment. So yeah, we can talk about it and give some more explanation, but it may be useful if you can just test something out. So this is the 4th exercise. Maybe we can first drag and drop the shape that we need and fill in all the necessary information for that shape, and we can duplicate that shape, so we don't need to fill in everything over and over again. So it's the connect element params shape. You can just drag and drop it onto your Visio. You see that there is, again, all the information requested. We fill in the element. So again, on my side, it's LE. On your side, it will be different according to your seat number. The parameter is, if I'm not mistaken, it's 100. Yeah. You can just leave the parameter description for demo purpose. We don't have a right parameter to that, and we also will not use this shape in with DCF. This will be explained in the more advanced session that Ton will give, my colleague. Okay, you can try this and watch the results. You can see it's the main status. So again, I linked the toggle button to that status. So if I click on error, it will change this. Okay. Now I will show you some Visio features. You can copy paste the shapes in multiple ways. You can just copy, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, but you can also use Ctrl C, Ctrl V. You can also use Ctrl D, just quite fast. Or if you want to align it directly, you can select the shape, hold Ctrl. While moving, you can use this Shift, and it will automatically align it to the left. Okay. So in this exercise, I want to show alignment. What we do is we first select the first shape. Secondly, we select all the other shapes that we want to align to that reference shape. Then there's some handy tool within Visio on the Home tab. Here's Align, and you can align those shapes all to the left. It's quite simple. I use it very often, and it goes very fast. So it's very simple, as I already said. Okay, let me continue with these slides. Some other feature that is very simple and maybe too simple to explain, but I see in my Visio review process a lot of these things happening. If you group some parameters, try to use the same width for these shapes. Also use an equal spacing between those shapes. It just gives a far more better look, as you can see. It's always better to just try it out within Visio. So as you can see, there are a lot of small exercises that are going quite fast, but it's just to get you going and to see how easy we can configure that. We can select all shapes that we want to distribute. So in this case, those two middle shapes will be distributed compared to the outer shapes. So if you select all shapes, you can go to the position command next to the align command that we used. There's something called distribute vertically. So what you see is that the space between those shapes is directly equal now. We can save it and you can see the results. Thanks. Okay. Are there any questions on this? Is it going too fast or too slow? You can always give some feedback, of course. As I already explained, you can also navigate to the Session 2 participants view. And you can download this Visio and copy from the exercise that you want. If you want to test something. Every exercise has a before-after, so you can start wherever you want. Okay. Also, if you don't know the parameter IDs, again, the final info page will show you all the necessary information.
Is anyone else not able to use the actual cube we're using in this workshop? Like, are you using a local cube or something and you're not able to use the stencils? No? Okay. It's fine then.
Okay. I guess I can continue with my slides. Something that I very often see is icons being in not really realistic rotation degrees, like 6.5% and stuff like that. Just if you want to make something professional, I suggest to only use 45 degrees or flip according to your needs. So again, it's something very simple, but also simple to configure in Visio. So I will show you that by means of the dish. So we go to our icons and we search for dish, because if you see the final exercise, we will need this over here. Can simply drag and drop that dish. I will make it a little bit bigger so you can easily see what will happen in some moments. It's also under the position command, and you can go to rotate shapes, and here you have the flip horizontal. You will see that the icon is flipped horizontally, and it will be seen as a receiving end and to connect to IRDs. I will save it again and verify my results. As you can see, it is placed over here. Of course, we can use all the things that we learned in the past. For example, to distribute all, I want to have the dish in the middle of these two shapes. Then you can select all, all three shapes, go to the position as we did previously, distribute vertically, and now you know that the dish is exactly in the middle of these two shapes. So as you can see, you can use it everywhere just by being a little bit creative. Okay, as this is a quite simple exercise, I will continue with some other features. So as you can see, there are quite a lot of features in Visio, and you just need to know all of them. And this is the final drawing that we are working to. So I hope you are not removing or deleting the shapes because we're just exercise by exercise getting to this final drawing. And here you can see that the dish is connected to some IRDs, and we can use connection points and lines for this. So why am I explaining that? Is because if you, for example, in any case want to move the dish from one position to the other, if you use regular lines, then the shapes will not position accordingly. So it's just quite useful. So again, it's exercise 7 now, and exercise 8 just after that. So if you're going faster and you want to do the exercises on your own, you can always do that. So in this very simple exercise, I will add just a connection point to the dish because it's not included in the icons, but it is included in the stencils and the KPI stencils that we dragged. It's included because, as I already explained, it's pre-designed for your needs. So if you go to the Visio, there's something called connection point over here. But before using that, be sure to navigate to the View tab within Visio and have connection points enabled. It's something that is by default disabled, so I suggest you to enable it. Okay, we can navigate back to the Home tab. Enable, or first select, it's all the same. First select the icon on which we want to include or add a connection point. We can enable the connection point by clicking that cross over here. And what you immediately see is that the selection has now a gray border instead of a selection. So what we now can do is we can easily click on our keyboard on Control, and we can add a connection point. It's not that amazing, but it can be useful. And you will see that for the 8th exercise. Okay, so let me directly go to the other exercise. It's to connect the dish with the IRDs. So we have another tool built in Visio called connector. It's just at the left of the connection point. So we can simply click on it. And as you can see, every shape that we have in Visio is highlighted in green. But I'm not really interested in selecting that shape because it will answer that connector to the middle of the shape. I want to have it to the connection point. So I can simply go to that connection point, go to the connection point that is pre-designed in the stencil, and just click it like this. You can also do that for the other backup IRD. It's just as easy as this. In case you want to move the lines, you can simply do that. In case you want it to be aligned, you can always do that by just going with your mouse a little bit up, and you see snap to geometry. So in this case, you know that it's really aligned, these two lines. In this exercise, we use straight lines, but in case you want to use some curvings, you can always go to not curved connector. It's an advanced feature in Visio that is not really integrated in Cube, but we can work around this by going to Format Shape, go into the line settings, and we can give here a routing size. And this will work within Cube. Okay? So let me go to Cube, and as you can see, the connections are being applied. So the real advantage is now, if you want to move the dish, everything will stay connected. So this is the end of the 8th exercise. As you can see, everything is quite simple. You just need to experience with it, and if you do this a lot, it will go very fast. Okay, so I guess I can continue. Now I will explain some more features of Visio that I will not cover all in exercises because, again, of time restrictions. For example, we have the background type. So each page within Visio, so we're talking almost the entire time of things within Visio, you have two types, either foreground or background pages. Background pages are not being shown within Cube, but they can facilitate the foreground pages. In case you, for example, have your own host style or you have your company logo that you want to apply to every foreground page, you just make one background page and apply that background page to every foreground page. As you can see here, this is a foreground page, and my background is applied to that foreground page. So in case you, in some time, you change the layout of your company style, you just need to change one page within Visio, and everything will be applied to every foreground page. So it's quite useful. Also, another thing, it's not selectable on the foreground page. So in case you have, if you go back to Visio, now if you want to select, for example, these two shapes, you cannot do that by just clicking and holding your mouse. In case it was a background page, so the background layer was applied in a background page, you would be able to select those shapes. So that's also sometimes useful to more focus. Okay. A second thing that is also quite or more advanced than the other things that I explained are layers. These can be useful in two use cases. The first one is also to apply a layer to a background. The layers are exactly the same, or you can see them as the same as Photoshop. Can assign several shapes to a specific layer, and you can hide that layer according to what you want to see. This will be covered in the following exercise. It's also useful to use layers in case you want to show information on the exact same place based on conditions. For example, if you have a toggle button that goes from one state to the other, if you want to show, if you want to work on the data in the one state, you can just assign it to the layer, just show that layer and hide the other layer. In the other state, in case you have a condition show equals 1, you can assign all the other shapes to that other layer, and then show that layer and hide the first layer that I talked about. It's very useful, but it's more advanced. Okay, I've got to the design tips. So a lot of users or designers tend to forget that DataMiner has multiple teams. As a designer, we don't know if the end user is working in a mixed team, often called the light team, or in a black team. So preferably, you make drawings that are compliant with both teams. And this can be used, this option, at the page level. It's quite cryptic, but easy to explain. So in here, you can see each team has 3 colors: team foreground, accent color, and backgrounds. In case you have this color, which is dark red, this will get translated into the team foreground color, which is black for the mixed team. Okay? In the black team, these colors are swapped. So the team foreground color in a black team is white. So what we can do is we can use black layers, black colors, that will get translated into white whenever you use a black team. And as you can see over here, this looks like a gray layer, but is not really a gray layer. It's actually filled in with the black color and a high amount of transparency, here 94%. So what you can see here is in a mixed team, black, which is this color, will get translated in black. So every color will stay the same in a mixed team. But in a dark team, black will get into white. So this can be useful. It's just being a little bit creative. And this is also applied in this exercise. So in here, we will do exactly what we did in the first exercise. We will change the background color to black and 94% transparent. We will add this option, and I will also show you some things about layers. Okay? So you can follow with me if you want, or work on your own. So first we want to apply via format shape that background color. So it's not line, but fill. We use a black color, which looks now ugly, but if you apply 94% transparency, it looks just in cube like a gray layer. Okay, let me just, for you to show what happens whenever you get into black team. So it's a user setting, so you can go to settings, and here change the background theme to Skyline black. Just say I'm an operator working in a black team. I'm working in a black room, in a dark room, sorry. And as you can see, on session 2 admin, this is just not compliant with the black team. So we can now add this option. It's, as I already explained, quite a long string, but I have added a note on my view, session 2-admin. So over there, you can just copy paste that string. Okay, I'll just copy that. Apply it to the page, not a shape, to the page. Define shape data, options, and the value is then the string that I just copied. Let me save it. And as you can see, everything is now visualized, except from the title. The title is probably displayed in gray, but we can simply solve that by applying a black color. Here you see. Okay. So this was just for demo purpose. I will go to the Skyline mix theme again. And you will see that everything is fine again. You need to reopen your card for the changes to be applied. Okay. We are still not finished with our exercise. I will show you some handy trick for the backgrounds. So I already showed you. If you want to select these two shapes, you cannot just hold your mouse. You can, of course, use the Control key, but in case you have a lot of shapes, you don't want that. What you can do is now assign that background to a layer and hide it. It will be hidden in Visio, but not in Cube. So everything that is hidden by layers in Visio will be shown in Cube. Okay, so you can select the background layer also in the Home tab. So there's a lot of features in the Home tab. It's something called layers. You can just assign this to a layer. But for now, there's nothing really, there's no real useful layer, so we create one. Click OK, and it will get automatically assigned to that background layer. Click OK. Of course, nothing will be changed, but we can change layer properties. The second option under layers. And here you can see that background is added. We have a visible column. This is the only useful feature when designing something for Cube. You can set this to invisible. And as you can see, now you can select all the shapes you want. Something useful. Also, in case you have two conditions, let's say I'm working on something with dishes, and in another moment we work with dishes that are not in use. It's something very dummy. But yeah, you can just not work with this. All these shapes are above each other. We can just assign it to specific layers. So test. And assign the other to another layer. And now, based on the conditions or based on the situation we have, we can now show height the layer that we want and work on this content. So in case we want to work on this, then you can do it like that. Okay. Now, as I already told you, you cannot see the layer within Visio, but if I save it, if I save my drawing, you will see that the layer is there in Cube. It's just to help the designing process. Okay. So this was the last hands-on exercise. The fully last exercise is to just finalize all the drawings by the things that we learned today. I'm not the one saying that I can make the best Visio drawing that will not need any change over time. So designing is something dynamic. You cannot make the most perfect drawing without needing for change. So what I can do is I can give you some heuristics that you can hold to, and this will enhance the quality of your Visio, even if you're not a design wonder. So, as I showed you, work for black team compatibility. Also group content, not only in the way we do for stencils, like we group in SLA information in a parameter list, but we can also group switches by means of background layers. These background layers that you see on these switches are also a black layer with 94% transparency. But if you have two layers above each other, the second layer will get a little darker. Okay. Also, let your Visio breathe, use enough space, and don't overcomplicate the things that you don't need. So make it to the essentials. This is what I already explained. So here we have a white background with a gray layer. You can also do it differently. You can assign an outer background, as you can see here. It's a gray background with a white layer above it. It's partially compatible with black theme. You can see all the contents, as you can see on the right side, except that you don't see any difference in the layers. So it's not anymore grouped together, but it will show you very nicely in a mixed theme. You can do that by defining shape data at the outer background, at page level, outer background. So the first two numbers are the transparency, and then you have the RGB, also with the same option that you used previously. This is mostly used for manager drivers, like for example in solutions. This is an example of IDP that we're working about. But yeah, don't stare only at Visio features. There are a lot of Visio features, DataMiner features, that can facilitate your drawing. As some of you have followed this first session, there are a lot of things that DataMiner can do. And my colleague in the third session will show you some more. So as you can see, it's again the Visio page of the IDP on the facilities view, so everything related about racks. And you can see by being creative, you can use a lot of features. As you can see, there's a tab control used. There are dynamic shape generations based on views. So for every location, you can navigate to that specific view. Also some alarming information, extended conditions. So this is a very important thing. With our toggle button, you can set one state to the other. So you can either show not assigned racks or servers, or you can show assigned servers. So based on this value, the table will be shown differently. Also, we have extended conditions. So in case we're on a not assigned rack, so it's not assigned to any rack, we can click. So if it's clicked, that row, we can see that there is an icon appearing that is relevant for that specific state. So if in that case, we can then launch an automation script to assign that device to a rack. Also dashboards, these are still the old dashboards, but eventually we will evolve towards the new dashboards. Okay, I will finish with some examples. As you can see here, this is a drawing that Ben used on the first day, but by applying the house style and some of the KPIs, we can make it more modern and professional. It's exactly the same thing, but just organized in a different way. Also in here, so at first sight, it looks very complicated, but if you just use the right stencils, you can see here the KPI stencils, the buttons, the icons, the rotation features of DataMiner, everything is actually applied in here. So you just for some tip, talk with people, know what they expect, and work your design around this. Okay, so this is the last exercise. In case you were following my exercises, you can add all this information by these steps to get to the final exercise. Okay, this is again all the information that you need. You can find it also on the printed handouts. I will just continue my drawing. You can follow with me if you want. So first of all, we want to, if you check the exercises, the first thing is to add switch on site 1. So we can do that also with simple lines. I will show you that so you know. These simple lines can also be used with the connector. So we can, for example, go to 195. You can easily do that for the other status. Okay. In case you want to have something, another line here for your switch, you can also use guides. I didn't talk about guides yet, but I will show you because I have some time over. Here you can see the unit ruler. It's enabled by the view. In the view tab, here you have something called ruler. So you can enable this in case you don't have this in here. Okay, so it's just a tool. You don't see that in Visio, but it's just a tool. So as you can see, it introduces a blue line that could be helpful to use it for alignment and stuff like that. So if we use the distribute vertically, we select those 3 lines, aligning to distribute vertically. Okay, this doesn't work, but we can solve it in another way. You can also use this line, as you can see here, align to the top, and then it will work. Okay, so now the line is in the exact middle of those 3 lines. We can add the switch by just going like this. You can see there's some guidance for the 45 degrees. We do it also over here. Snap to vertex, and of course we add a line that will go out of our switch. Now we will add some condition to these lines. So what we can do is we can configure 1 line at a time, but we can also select multiple lines. So you need to configure less options and just change the values according to your needs. So we will link this to an element. In my case, again, it's LE. Add a parameter shape data. And I need to check what parameter ID it will be. It's 200. So that is the connector of the first switch. And we add a condition to that. We do that by adding a pipe, then show semicolon equals 1, for example. If you click OK, it will be applied to both of these lines because I selected both of them. Of course, we need to change this for the second line, for the backup status, to show only whenever the status is 0, the value is 0. Okay? Just before saving, I will add a toggle button to change that state. So that toggle button belongs to this. You can align that toggle button by using the align tool, as I already explained, align to right. And then the copy option that I also explained. So by holding the Control key and the Shift, you can see that the toggle button is duplicated. Okay? Just change the read parameter and the write parameter because it's now about the switch, and these are 200 and 250. Okay, so this is the only thing that we need to change, and it will automatically link to another parameter. If we save our Visio and we go to cube again, I hope it is saved or still linked because I connected to another DMA. Could be that the linking is gone. Maybe let me close Visio and open it again. Okay, now the changes are applied. So what you can see is now the switch to the backup status is not connected anymore. And we can change that by changing the toggle button state. Okay, it's as simple as that. Also, I see that the other blocks are not changed. So again, to see how fast we can change that, it's just a matter of changing the parameter ID. And they will automatically link to the right parameter. So this is 101 status, 151, and so on. So now you see that all the KPIs are, all the parameters are linked to this exact same, to the right parameter, sorry. And can of course change that toggle button to change the state. Okay. As you can see, the button is really floating in the air. So we can use the heuristic that I said to group the content by a layer, just by assigning, first align it a little bit. Okay, now we can use the layers that we had hidden all the time. Oh. Align that layer to the top. And align it here to the bottom. The last thing that we need to do is align the toggle button with that layer. And now you can see that it's already a lot better. Okay. Also, maybe we can go to the third step of this last exercise, or it's the second step, sorry. We can use the KPI stencil. I will demo that another time. So, and just drag and drop that shape again. Link that to the right elements. Can of course change this title because it will by default link to the element name. It's just if you want to create something very simple, can change that, type in SLA for example, and it will automatically change the title without any configurations that you need to do manually in Visio. I only have two SLA parameters, so I won't change these, but I can do that just so you see again that it will automatically generate or delete the shapes that you need. Okay, let me check the cheat sheet for the parameter IDs. It's 11 and 12. We don't have a right parameter. Okay.
De shapes van de macro's hoe je ze kunt unlocken en aanpassen. En of dat mag.
Okay, so there's apparently a question how to edit and adjust these stencils. Preferably, we do not do that, but I can show you how you can do that. There are a couple of restrictions that we've made, so yeah, you don't actually need to change these. But we have on the developer tab, you can find how to enable this developer tab on the help page on the session 2 participants. Final info, Visio setup. In options, you can see under advanced that you can run in developer mode. You need to do that. And here you can see that there are a couple, sometimes there are a couple of protections. I don't see any of them. In here, for example. So the background, you cannot change the height and the X and Y position, for example. You can change that. So now, as you can see, I cannot change the height of the background. So I can change the height of this shape, of the full KPI, but I cannot change the background, just because it's not really needed, in my opinion. But in case you want to do that, you can adjust this, or uncheck the protection of the height, click OK, and now you can see that you're able to adjust the height. Also, if you investigate a little bit more the stencils, you will see, for example, that parameter 100 is filled in, while I just defined it at the group level. That's why we need macros, just as simple to fill in all at the exact place where it needs to be. If you want to change that, it's not possible. I added a restriction in there. So if you want to change that, maybe the most simple thing is to delete that parameter and change it, or add a new parameter, shape data. Okay? There's also something called show shape sheet. It's more or less the raw data of your Visio, but in a lot of cases you don't need that. It's more or less for developer purpose. Okay? So I was busy with the SLA. I have filled in a title for the SLA and filled in all the necessary parameters. And you see that the changes are applied to my view. You can also incorporate an icon stencil to this. So I have made the possibility to resize the text, the width of this of the title text. Go to icons, again search for SLA, for example, SLA. And you can see that there are two suggestions. I will use this one. As you can see, it's a little bit too big, so I can just resize it and have the texts aligned to this. Okay? I have forgotten one thing. I need to add my icon to that KPI, because if I will move it, you will see that the icon is not moved together. So we can just do that as in the exercise. We control click on the icon after selecting first the KPI shape, go to the group commands, add to group. This will include the icon inside the group. So a normal shape, like you can add in here, a rectangle, is called a shape. A group is also called a shape within Visio. It's just a convention. And as you can see, the SLA icon has been added. Okay. We can also do that now for the site 1 status and the site 2 status. So we can just copy paste that shape, just like we did with the toggle buttons. Change some of the information, also the parameter IDs. It's 104 and 105. If you save it, it will automatically apply the parameters. And so you can see that these stencils are very easy to configure, and you can make a Visio quite fast. Also, the alignment or the spacing between those parameter stencils is not really nice, so we can do that. One second. Come on. Okay. So I want to align first my KPI stencil with the most upper other KPI. Align it to the top. Here we do the same, but we align to the bottom. And then we can use the distribute vertically command to distribute the space between all of these shapes. So we select all of them, go to the position command, and we here have the distribute vertically command. Okay. Of course, we can do all of these things also for the backup status or the site 2. Okay, let's move on to the second or the third exercise. You can just duplicate it like we always did. We need to glue the connectors again, so otherwise they won't change whenever you drag and drop the dish icon. So let me do that very quickly. Also, we need to change the parameter ID of that second switch. And that toggle button, of course. You can see that the design is very fast if you just use the right tools. You can set it to error. Also, we can have the main IRD in green, have only the site 1 status in red, of course. Can also add a shape to show the element status. We will not include any borders because most of these shapes are not using borders. So again, the style guide is some guidance. You don't need to follow it strictly, but the only thing that you need to remember is that it needs to be consistent. If you use no lines for some shapes, use no lines for other shapes that you create customly. Okay, we link it to the elements. And also, we don't want to navigate to the elements, so we add an option enabled equals false. So this is the most severe alarming color. In case you set the backup status to error, it will indicate the most severe alarming color, as you can see. Okay. Let's just finish our drawing by just adding the last switch, the master switch, and then we just have finalized our demo in a very simple way. Okay. So we can use again the guides that I showed you before to have it in the middle. I don't know why it didn't work previously. Oh, it's the distribute command that I need to use. Okay, so now it worked. So now we know that the guide is exactly in the middle of these two sides. We can, like we did on the first switches, we can assign, come on. Okay, so there's some guidance for the 45 degrees. We can also use that, yeah, like this, for the other switch. So just like we did for the first two switches, we use the gray background to group the content. Aligning it properly, and also add the conditions to these shapes. That's why I talked about the layers. We can assign that background to the background layer. It's already assigned because it was duplicated. You can set it to visible, invisible, and now you can easily select those two lines. So you see that the features that I'm talking about are really relevant in the specific use cases that you're encountering. So let me fill in the element data, also the parameter. We need to change it for the backup status or for the site 2, like we did previously. Apply the changes, and of course you can see that the condition is applied. So you can now further enhance it. Also add a toggle button to change the connection over there. Align the toggle button with the align tool. And you can see that the changes are applied. Okay, the toggle button is apparently not linked to the right parameter ID. But as you can see, we can easily do that by changing some shape data instead of going into all of the details of these shapes. Okay, so I guess this was my workshop. Thank you for listening and attending. I hope you learned something from this. And okay, any questions?
I think you've got your button labels the wrong way around.
Okay.
Because if you've got a button with a label that pressing that will invoke that. So I would argue on your standard there that site 1, the button should now say actually site 2 because you press the button to go to site 2.
Yeah, yeah, that's just a convention, of course, and indeed. Yeah, that's true. But we're working on it. It's a first release that we have now, and from the feature release 969. So we hope to get all of your feedback to enhance the stencils, of course. Okay? Another question?
Yeah, so stencils is not any function.
Well, the stencils are automatically loaded in from Cube, so they are loaded in the right places. But you can, of course, find them under your Skyline DataMiner folder under Views, Templates. So if you have access to your DMA, you can find these stencils over there. And if you have a Visio not linked to Cube, you can import that from within Visio without any interaction. Here you can do it on more shapes and just open stencil. That's how you do it if your Visio is not linked to Cube. Okay? Any other question?
This feature release
969. Okay. Thank you for attending and enjoy the next sessions. Bye-bye.